Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. I'm your host, and today we are getting into something that I think is going to completely change how you look at the sports business.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to get into this one because, well, it's a massive shift.
It really is.
Yeah.
So imagine you're running a highly successful, globally recognized business, right? But every single day, the public treats you like a charity case that might just go bankrupt by Friday.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Like you're constantly on the edge of disaster.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
You have elite talent, you have national television deals, and you have a product that people genuinely love. But the cultural narrative isn't about your dominance. It's about your fragility.
Which is such a bizarre dynamic for the consumer, too. I mean, think about it from the fan's perspective.
Yeah, oh, totally. You stop going to a game purely to be entertained,
Yeah.
and you start going because you feel like this moral obligation to support a cause.
Right, and that is an exhausting way to consume entertainment. You know, you don't buy an NBA ticket to support the concept of men playing basketball.
No, of course not. You buy it because you want to see an incredible athletic spectacle.
Yeah.
And today, we are tearing into a blueprint that completely dismantles that old charity narrative.
Yes, we are looking at a deeply insightful strategic document titled The Final Remix, Building the Modern WNBA. And the mission of our deep dive today is to really map out the exact mechanics of this transition.
Exactly. We're going to guide you through how a league tears down its startup scaffolding and builds a permanent, undeniable sports empire. So, okay, let's unpack this. I want to start right at the psychological pivot.
Which is arguably the most important part of the whole document. The material sets a tone right away that is just a massive line in the sand.
It really does. It declares unconditionally that the league is no longer operating from a place of survival. And that isn't just PR spin, right? It's an operational mandate.
It changes every single variable in how the business is run. I mean, think about the vernacular that surrounded this league for its first 25 years or so.
Oh, the buzzwords were always like protection and support or growth potential.
Right, and visibility campaigns. That was a huge one.
Visibility campaigns. Let's pause on that phrase for a second. If I hear visibility campaign, I don't think of a ruthless billion-dollar sports entity, you know?
No, you think of a local library trying to keep its doors open.
Yes. Or like an endangered species.
Yeah.
It fundamentally implies that the subject is fragile and just requires the audience's goodwill to exist.
And, well, to be fair, relying on sympathy is a highly effective survival mechanism in the early days of any venture. It gets you through the lean years.
Right, when cash flow's unpredictable.
Exactly. But the central thesis we're looking at today is that sympathy simply does not scale. You cannot build a generational institution on the back of public favors.
What scales is strategy.
Okay.
What scales is premium infrastructure. And the document points out that when the profitability math finally clicks, the whole posture of the organization has to harden.
Yeah, the phrase they use is really striking. We are no longer asking, can this work? But rather, how big can this become?
That is such a powerful shift. But I have to wonder, is it hard to shake that underdog identity once you've relied on it for so long?
That is the tightrope. It's incredibly risky psychologically.
Right, because it's like a tech startup.
Yeah.
You know, a company that finally stops worrying about making payroll and starts planning their global headquarters.
That's a perfect analogy. When an executive team is in survival mode, their horizon is incredibly short. They're making decisions based on immediate payroll and, well, cheap optics.
Just trying to make it to the next quarter.
Exactly. But if you shift to infrastructure mode, you stop worrying about surviving the quarter. You start making capital-intensive bets that might take a decade to mature.
You aren't asking fans for a favor anymore. You're basically telling them, buy a ticket today or you will be locked out tomorrow because we are selling out.
And that shift in leverage is just intoxicating for a business. Once you internalize that leverage, the immediate operational consequence is physical growth.
Which brings us perfectly to the expansion strategy. Because once you start asking how big this can become, the immediate next step is getting bigger physically.
Right. The material is adamant that the league is essentially bursting at the seams right now.
Yeah, and it isolates a few specific pressures causing this. There's an overwhelming surplus of elite talent, massive untapped media markets, and entire geographical regions with zero representation.
Let's unpack that talent surplus first, because this is where the old survival model actively hurts the on-court product.
Oh, absolutely. The math on draft day is genuinely brutal to watch.
It really is. In any pro sports league, the quality of the product is dictated by the depth of the talent pool. And right now, the talent pool in women's basketball has vastly outpaced the infrastructure.
Because there are so few roster spots, right? You have these undeniably professional caliber athletes just sitting at home.
Exactly. Players who could be driving massive engagement and revenue for a franchise.
I mean, you have college superstars who just played in front of 10 million people on national TV in the Final Four. They get drafted, and then they're cut 3 weeks later.
Just because the musical chair's music stopped and there wasn't a seat left, it's incredibly inefficient.
You are basically taking pre-built marketing assets and throwing them in the trash.
Which means leaving millions of dollars on the table. Expanding the league isn't just about adding games to a TV schedule. It's about building a permanent basketball ecosystem.
What's fascinating here is the specific list the document provides of what expansion actually creates.
Right. It drops a new franchise into a city and ignites an entirely new microeconomy.
It creates roster opportunities, obviously,
Yeah.
but also new fan bases, local TV markets, and regional rivalries.
And regional rivalries are the holy grail of sports marketing. You don't have to spend a dime convincing a fan in New York to hate a team in Boston.
Right. Hundreds of years of cultural friction just do the heavy lifting for you.
Exactly. And beyond the rivalries, it creates local corporate sponsorships and triggers youth engagement at a local level.
Because when a team arrives in a city, the local kids grow up with that team's logo just baked into their visual environment, right?
Yeah, the local news treats draft picks as major civic events. The restaurants around the arena depend on game days. It becomes a localized reality that people just live inside.
But to build that kind of ecosystem, you need oxygen. You need the cultural space to actually capture people's attention.
Which brings us to the calendar advantage.
Yes. This is what I think is the most brilliant asymmetrical advantage the WNBA has. The summer monopoly.
It is incredibly rare in the modern entertainment landscape to find empty real estate.
And the WNBA operates during the NBA offseason. The strategy here is so aggressive, and I love it. It says, don't just survive the summer sports lull. Dominate it.
Right, turn the summer into your exclusive territory. Because if we look at the macro-level American sports calendar, the fall and winter months are an absolute bloodbath.
Oh, total bloodbath. You have pro football, college football, hockey, men's basketball, all actively cannibalizing each other.
Right, they're fighting for the same viewership, the same media coverage, the same sponsor dollars. It is a hyper-saturated market.
Trying to launch a new narrative in October is, well, it's like trying to whisper in a hurricane.
Precisely. But summer. After the NBA Finals wrap up in June, the sports landscape goes relatively quiet.
Baseball's playing, sure, but that high-octane basketball culture goes dormant.
But the consumers of basketball don't disappear. That habit of watching hoops, debating stats, following player narratives, that is deeply ingrained in millions of fans.
So the WNBA just needs to slot its expanded product directly into that existing behavioral groove.
Exactly, but I know what you're going to ask.
Well, yeah, let me play devil's advocate for a second. If the talent is there and the summer calendar is basically a wide-open runway, what is the bottleneck? Why not expand to 30 teams tomorrow?
Because the source heavily emphasizes that this expansion must be methodical, strategic, not reckless.
Right. It specifically uses the word strategic. Why is reckless expansion so dangerous?
Because reckless expansion is the fastest way to plunge right back into that survival mode we just spent 20 years trying to escape.
Ah, right. Granting a franchise to an ownership group that lacks the capital to weather early unprofitability.
Exactly. Or rushing into a city without a local broadcast deal. Or, most dangerously, putting a team in the wrong physical building.
Which is a perfect transition. We've talked about the macro-level map, but where exactly are these games being played?
This is where the blueprint pulls absolutely no punches.
It insists the league must play in real NBA arenas whenever possible. It says they have to abandon temporary setups or smaller environments that visually feel, quote, less professional.
And this isn't just about vanity. It's about the brutal logistics of running a massive entertainment machine.
Right, let's break down that infrastructure. Because as a fan, you just walk through the doors and buy a hot dog. You don't see the sprawling nervous system behind it.
No, you don't. When a team plays in a secondary, non-major arena, they're essentially trying to build a bespoke event machine from scratch every single night.
The document lists all these existing infrastructure advantages of NBA arenas. Security systems, parking flow, staffing plans, concession operations.
Let's talk about the parking flow alone. Secondary arenas often have parking lots designed for a suburban shopping center. They can't handle 8,000 cars arriving simultaneously.
Which pisses off the consumer before they even see the court.
Exactly. And inadequate security checkpoints cause massive bottlenecks. Concession stands aren't optimized for a halftime rush, so you lose out on thousands of dollars in revenue simply because the lines are too slow.
Oh, and the broadcasting capabilities. The text mentions transportation planning, premium seating, and entertainment production systems.
Right. In a minor league arena, camera operators are trying to figure out if the ceiling can even support a multi-ton lighting rig.
Or if they have the broadband capacity to push a 4K broadcast to a national network. You spend 80% of your energy just fighting the building.
But when you move into an NBA arena, you are plugging your product into a billion-dollar, perfectly tuned machine.
The parking algorithms are optimized. The security is frictionless. The premium suites are already built and ready to be sold to high-end corporate clients.
And let's look at the economic ripple effect of this, the year-round business model. NBA arenas are traditionally seasonal businesses.
Right. They sit largely inactive for 3 to 4 months during the summer, generating zero revenue, but still costing a fortune in maintenance.
By plugging the WNBA into those specific buildings from May to September, you transform a seasonal liability into a year-round economic engine.
It benefits everyone. The ownership groups maximize the ROI on their real estate.
And the thousands of hourly arena workers now have reliable year-round income. They don't have to find random gig work in the summer.
Plus the surrounding businesses, right? The sports bars, the local restaurants. It boosts local tourism during a time when their cash flow usually dries up.
It's a massive economic win across the board. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the physical building isn't just about logistics, it's about psychology.
Yes, the psychology of presentation. The framework argues that sports fans fundamentally attach value to presentation.
It dictates value subconsciously. Let's use an analogy. If you walk into a restaurant and the tables are sticky and you get plastic cutlery, your brain immediately categorizes the experience.
You expect the food to be cheap and fast.
Exactly. But if you walk into a space with dim, ambient lighting, linen tablecloths, and heavy crystal water glasses, your brain prepares to pay a premium.
And linen tablecloth literally has zero impact on the flavor of the steak, but it completely dictates what I'm willing to pay for it.
In sports, the arena is the tablecloth. The presentation dictates the value. Big arenas, big broadcasts, and big production subconsciously signal major league to sports fans.
So what does this all mean for the fan at home? Because even if a fan isn't in the building, seeing that on TV changes everything.
Oh, completely. When a casual fan is flipping through channels and sees a cavernous 20,000-seat arena with blindingly bright NBA-level lighting and sweeping high-definition camera angles, their brain instantly categorizes it as a Tier 1 cultural event.
They might not even know who is playing. But the packaging signals importance.
Conversely, if you ask that same fan to treat your athletes as global superstars, but the broadcast looks like it was shot in a community recreation center with dark corners, the cognitive dissonance is just too loud.
Right, the packaging actively undermines the product.
And the product on the court has been elite for a very long time. The packaging has historically been the bottleneck.
So moving to NBA arenas shatters that bottleneck. Okay, so beautiful arenas are great, but they don't mean anything if the fans don't care about the people on the court.
Infrastructure is just the stage. You still need a compelling play.
Which means we need to take a hard look at who is actually playing in these arenas. And this leads us to segment 4, deepening the ecosystem.
Roster stability and player pipelines. This is a painful reality highlighted in the text.
Yeah, the core problem is that, quote, too many talented players disappear too quickly.
It's a devastating structural flaw. Long-term league culture cannot grow if fans constantly lose connection to athletes before their careers fully develop.
An ecosystem needs depth to feel alive over decades. I like to compare this to a beloved TV show.
That's a great way to look at it.
Imagine if your favorite supporting characters just vanished every single season because the network couldn't afford them. You'd stop watching.
Because that web of relationships makes the fictional world feel lived in. If you constantly delete the supporting cast, the viewers get emotional whiplash.
Right, eventually you protect yourself. You stop investing your emotions in the new characters because you know they're just going to be gone in 12 months anyway.
And that is the exact psychological barrier fans have faced due to restrictive roster sizes. The document details the specific roles that make a league compelling.
It's not just superstars, right?
No, a healthy league needs superstars, sure. But it also desperately needs role players, veterans, underdogs, breakout players, and fan favorites.
Why is the role player so vital, though?
Because the role player is the ultimate bridge of relatability. A fan looks at a generational MVP as a physical anomaly. But the role player, the athlete whose job is just to play exhausting, physical defense and dive for loose balls.
The fan projects their own life onto that player. They see their own blue-collar work ethic reflected on the court.
Exactly. And what about the veterans? Veterans are the living historical record of a franchise. They provide narrative continuity.
Oh, the emotional catharsis. When a veteran player who has suffered through awful rebuilding years finally wins a championship.
The fan base explodes because they shared that suffering. You cannot manufacture that level of loyalty with a marketing budget. It only compounds over time.
But if your roster mechanics force you to cut that veteran in year 4 to save money, you burn that narrative equity to the ground.
You're clear-cutting the forest before the roots can hold the soil together. So creating stable pipelines and expanding rosters isn't charity. It is a ruthless business strategy.
It's about ensuring your TV show has a multi-layered ensemble cast, so fans stay emotionally handcuffed to the product.
Emotional stability is the product. The games are just the vehicle for the emotion.
Wow. Okay, so having a stable, deep roster is the product. But how do you sell that product to the masses? This leads directly to the marketing strategy.
Knowing the audience. And this is where the strategic framework establishes a crucial rule. The WNBA does not need to copy men's sports culture to become powerful.
Right. It needs to understand its own audience. The text explicitly contrasts with traditional male-dominated sports structures.
For decades, the assumption was that the aggressive, hyper-masculine model of the NFL or the NBA was the only way to monetize sports.
But this blueprint rejects that. It lists specific marketing pillars: family-centered experiences, youth basketball integration, women-first branding, athlete personality marketing, affordable live entertainment, and community engagement.
This raises an important question, though. Traditional sports rely on different cultural levers. By aiming to be the easiest professional sports experience for families to attend, the WNBA is identifying a massive market advantage.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and I want to push back a little. Some might hear family-centered and think that means less intense or watered down.
Like minor league baseball, right? Goofy mascots and cheap tickets.
Exactly. How does the source prove that this is actually a ruthless, highly effective business strategy rather than just a nice sentiment?
It ties back to building permanent, multi-generational ecosystems. Look at the reality of the modern NBA or NFL experience. Taking a family of 4 to a premium men's sporting event is a logistical and financial nightmare.
It costs hundreds, if not over $1,000. Tickets, parking, food.
Plus, the environment can be intensely hostile or fueled by gambling tension. The games start late on the school night. The friction is astronomical.
Millions of middle-class families have been entirely priced out.
Exactly. So by engineering itself to be the most frictionless, high-level professional sports experience for families, the WNBA isn't settling for a minor league demographic. They are executing a hostile takeover of a massive demographic that other leagues abandoned.
They are looking at the families standing outside the velvet rope of the NBA and saying, "We will gladly take your money and give you elite basketball in the exact same building."
And it pays exponential dividends. How do you guarantee a rabid season ticket holder 20 years from now? You make sure they are in the building today when they're 8 years old.
That's the youth basketball integration. Every kid playing in a summer rec league views the WNBA as the ultimate pinnacle because they actually get to see it in person.
It's a completely different playbook for generational market capture. And it extends to the women-first branding, too.
Right, which creates an intensely loyal demographic that feels genuinely seen rather than just pandered to with, like, pink jerseys.
It creates an economic moat. When your audience feels fundamentally respected, they become lifelong evangelists for the product.
But all of this macro-level marketing pivots on how the league markets the individuals driving the game.
Which brings us to the final evolution in the blueprint: the year-round public figure and modern storytelling.
The source material is definitive here. Athletes need to become bigger cultural figures through visibility, not through controversy or forced internet drama.
The core thesis of modern sports from the text is that sports are built through storytelling. Fans support people they feel emotionally connected to.
And the vehicles for this are interviews, personality, and branding.
Right. If a player scores 40 points, but the fan knows absolutely nothing about her, where she grew up, the injuries she overcame, the relationship is purely transactional.
They're only invested in the points, and points are fleeting. Someone else will score 40 points tomorrow.
Precisely. But if the fan knows her story, they are invested in the human being. When she scores 40 points, it feels like a personal victory for the fan.
Personal emotional investment is permanent. It turns them into year-round public figures.
And that synthesizes the entire journey of the document. Moving from sympathy to strategy means treating the players not as causes to be supported, but as highly marketable public figures who drive a massive entertainment engine.
I mean, the product on the court is already good enough, as the source states. The deciding factor isn't basketball skill, it's how effectively the league turns these athletes into year-round stars.
The product has been there. It's just about letting the structure catch up to the ambition.
It really is a breathtaking pivot. Let me summarize this deep dive for you, the listener, because we covered a lot of ground today.
We really did.
The source material has mapped out a clear blueprint. Stop asking for support and start building infrastructure. Use real NBA arenas to visually signal Major League status.
Expand strategically to own the summer monopoly.
Exactly. Deepen the rosters so fans don't lose their favorite ensemble cast members to arbitrary cuts. And embrace a women-first, family-affordable marketing strategy that turns players into year-round stars through genuine storytelling.
If they do all of that, the transition is complete.
And that leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with to ponder on your own. If the WNBA successfully executes this shift, if it claims the summer, fills the biggest arenas, and builds a permanent ecosystem where athletes are year-round cultural fixtures, how might this completely redefine the way all sports leagues market to families and communities in the future?
It's a huge question.
If sympathy is dead and strategy takes over, the WNBA might not just catch up to traditional sports models. It might actually rewrite the entire playbook. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the structures of the things you watch and love. We'll see you next time.